welcome and thank you for letting me taking part in this. Um, Actually, when the invitation arrived, I was in the middle of our biggest process or project production, and I will tell you about it. But I think also because I'm now the last speaker in this long conference, I want to give you a bit of a action point before I start to talk. So please just show it. There should be music.
No,
Yeah.
Shah, relax.
Yeah.
We don't want.
Yeah. Okay. So, actually, this is part of a very funny, interesting art blog from a Danish artists who just were with us for 3 weeks in Jerusalem, and they took part in our first public space project. It's the group from Bureau de Tours. I'm sure you know them. So later on, I'll give you the link so you can see the whole beautiful setup. So we heard a lot about art and globalization in these days, and I want to share with you today the experience in Jerusalem, what it means to be an Palestinian art organization in Jerusalem. And to give you a bit of a background, I'm German Palestinian, so I have a dialogue already inside of me, and I started to work with Hoash as a director in 2013. So before I go into our current program and the changes, I want to give you a bit of a background on where we are. So invite you to take part now in the journey, to come with me to Jerusalem. Like this. Yes, I saw it was the title is a bit different here than in our brochure. So it's on bridging the gap: art scenes in conflict zones, sense of place in society. And I think that connects very well to what we talked about in the first day. That you have to see where you are and to understand what your circumstances are, and to start from there. So, this is Hoash, our art organization situated in East Jerusalem, outside of the old city. We are in the upper floor, where you see the round windows. And Hoash exists since 2004. It was established by a group of art lovers who wanted to find a place, or to found a place for promoting Palestinian art. So therefore, the mission of the beginning was to preserve and promote Palestinian art and culture heritage, and to lay the foundation for future Palestinian art museum. Quite a big attempt or aim to achieve. Okay, let me go back. That's how I go back. So when I started in 2013, September actually, I came there and I tried to understand the circumstances of the institution. The institution was well established in the local scene. It's known for their exhibitions on Palestinian art. They had a concentration on retrospectives and trying to do research on Palestinian art history. We had a number of publications, which is all very important because not a lot of publications have been published about Palestinian art. So for sure, this is very important. But when I entered, I felt also that there is kind of a gap between the local community and our institution. And being in Jerusalem, being in East Jerusalem and being situated where we are, it's very important to understand where you are. And you cannot just be a normal white cube having exhibitions going on while you are surrounded by the conflict. And seeing also who's coming to our exhibitions, which was more or less a group or elite or a lot of foreigners, I thought also that's not what I'm interested in. I want to open up our institution. I want to find a way to bring back people from the street also. So what we wanted to do, what I try to do is finding a way to understand where we are first and then to see how we can connect it to our new program. I have no idea how much you have an introduction to Palestine or you know about Palestine. The bit tricky thing is when you work in Palestine, most of the people think that they know because it's in the center of the political interest and it's the center of the political conflict. But I realized that it's a kind of one overview, superficial overview, what we know from the news and perhaps from one or two meetings. But what really the situation is on the ground is not that clear. So in 2015, we are in a situation where the Palestinian society is totally fragmented. We have the divisions of the territory, Palestinian territory, in Zone A, B, and C. And only in Zone A, we have the Palestinian Authority governing. B is already shared with the Israelis, and C is already on the administrative and security level governed by Israel. So there was once an artist who did a very nice, I think it was a British artist, who did this very nice picture of the islands of Palestine, because if you just transfer the Zone A into the entity and the rest becomes the ocean, it's like an island. So there perhaps we can also connect to Jamaica, but Paul's not here anymore. So this is a big problem for us, that we are fragmented and we are not connected. And it's very difficult to be mobile between the different entities. And of course, that influences also our living circumstances. So everyone has its own little setup and reality, and is very busy in finding a way to make your living and to survive in the way you can survive in your circumstances and deal with the problems you have to deal with. So what does it mean now for Jerusalem? So what are the dynamics in Jerusalem and the specific circumstances? Jerusalem, yesterday on the train with Henrik, I open up the website for him to see also what, how Jerusalem look like nowadays. So it's surrounded by a lot of settlements. And all of you know, of course, the separation wall. So it is kind of a satellite setup for the Palestinians living in Jerusalem, because they are disconnected from the hinterland, from the Palestinian West Bank and the other territories. The Jerusalem Palestinians can go to the other territories, but the Palestinians from the West Bank, they can't come to Jerusalem, which is of course a very important part, because normally you had this kind of in and out going between the city and the surrounded villages. So this is now interrupted, and that makes a big deal for Palestinians in Jerusalem, because suddenly the audience is gone, or the kind of interaction with your society. So Jerusalem today is governed by Israel, so it's occupied and governed by Israel. So Palestinians in Jerusalem living under Israeli occupation, and they are citizens, not citizens of the state, but have a residency status, which already frames the very insecure circumstances you're living in. You don't have a nationhood, you have just a travel document, so you don't have a Palestinian document, you have just a citizenship of being Jerusalemite, which shapes already your being, and it makes it very insecure. That means also that people there are sitting more or less in between the chairs. So they don't belong to Israel, and they cannot belong to the Palestinian territories. So they don't have any connection to the Palestinian Authority, because the Palestinian Authority is not allowed to enter Jerusalem. So you're really in between the chairs. And of course, you have a very high unemployment rate there, and lack of infrastructure and space. The space in East Jerusalem is also very reduced. It's very difficult to grow, because therefore you need permits from the Israeli municipality, and it's not easy to get it. So it is not developing. So you are like put on a pause. When you see a film and you just stop it, you're like that. So what does it mean for working there? I was working also in Ramallah, so I know very well what it means to work in Ramallah and what it means to work in Jerusalem, and there are totally two different cup of teas. So it is very difficult to get people out of the street. It is very difficult to make people, again, active. They are frustrated. They are going back to their private entities where they feel secure, where they can belong to, and it is very difficult to convince people to become active again and to trust. The trust is also a big thing there in Jerusalem. I mean, as I told you, I have also a German background, so therefore I can say perhaps also it has a bit of a Stasi atmosphere, because people are, suspicious. They don't know who's a traitor, who not, who's collaborating with Israel, and what I'm saying now could be, land somewhere where I don't want to be known. So you have this kind of very uneasy setup. When I said that, okay, we have to get out of the white cube, we want to change, that was also a reason because why I wanted to do it, because I realized one of the big problems in Jerusalem, of course, is the space. Space is reduced, and the whole concept of public space doesn't exist. So I thought that's exactly then where we should go into it. So as I said, it makes for me no sense to be a white cube. And I had also the question to myself, what is important in this situation? We can continue saying that we should preserve knowledge and our heritage for the future generation, but is this enough? They should just remember their identity, or they should become active again? Or do we need a broader interpretation? So my work is also, I study also political science and history thought, so I'm very much also in between these two different fields, and I see them not so much different from each other, but very much linked to each other. So therefore also art doesn't exist for me for its own sake, but it is important to engage with the surrounding and with the community you are living in. And at the same time, it was clear for me while working in Hoash that a younger generation of Palestinian artists in Jerusalem is very much embodied for their own interests, or which could present their own interests. Ramallah is a totally different cup of tea, as I said. We have most of our cultural institutions are in Ramallah. It's kind of vibrant. Those who were already in Ramallah know it's a kind of little vibrant city. So you have a lot of culture going on there. Jerusalem is after 7 o'clock dead. There's nothing. The shops are closed and nobody's in the street anymore. So, and we have only 2 art organizations. It's my colleague Jack Perzikian in Al Ma'mal Foundation. It is a smaller foundation in the old city working on visual art in us. But nevertheless, the younger generation has no room for experimenting themselves or just exploring their talents. So it was for me very important to find a way, to find a combination out of these 2 different needs. So to get out and to be again with the community, and on the other hand also to have the access to the younger artists and present their interests. So what does the community need? As I said, they need the space. They get back to the public space, and they need to get back to find a way of ownership and identity to their own city. And the artist needs an address to meet, exchange, and increase their knowledge, and have a place to showcase their work. So what we did is, here you see the map of Hoash. We reorganized a bit our space. So when you enter, you have, this is the entrance hall, and we changed the veranda into a platform where we have our artist talks, meetings. We established an art library there, and we use it for showcasing art and design. So I opened up our understanding of being a visual art institute or organization, and I opened up for so-called creative industry and invite Palestinian artists and designers to show their products, because they don't have any address. So it's a totally different setup. So you need to find a way to be more broader. So this is a platform, and people can come and sit and use and work. I was yesterday also in Kunsthal Aarhus. I made a little tour in Denmark. And I saw very much the same setup there, because they also have their lounge area where people sit with their computers and work, and you have the bookshop and the library. So it's a bit the same kind of stuff we're trying to establish and open up for the community. And then you have the 2 exhibition rooms, which are still there, of course, and we're using them for ongoing different projects for exhibitions. And we changed one room into a collector's room, because as you remember in the beginning, Hoash wanted to become an art museum. And when I entered the organization, we're like kind of 10 years of attempt to become or to develop an art museum. And nothing has been done so far, because it's very complicated. It takes a lot of money and a lot of knowledge. So I said, instead of continuing the process of finding a way how, let's just start with a room. So we changed the room, we changed the interior design, and we gave it a bit of a touch of this classical art museum with a wooden floor and a bit of a different ceiling. And we are showing artworks from collections, Palestinian collections. We have a number of Palestinian collectors who are collecting Palestinian art. So we open up the private collections and show it to the public. And in that sense, we have now 2 rooms which are on the run throughout the year, busy. So it's not anymore that you have an exhibition for 3 months. Then again, you close more or less the organization because you have nothing and you're setting up something else. So instead, now we have always something to show, and schools and youth groups and tourists, whoever wants to come, they will find something. Yeah, that's what I just explained to you. And then we integrated also the new program of an open gallery, which is an experimental space for young artists. So they would have, I give these 2 exhibition rooms for them for 2 to 3 weeks, and they can do what I want. And I'm really open for it. And I'm excited about it, because we never know what will happen. And last but not least, of course, is then the Public Space Art Lab program. Lab. Yeah. So here I have some images, so not just talking. So you see, this is a platform, the library and the bookshop, which we changed from the other side with the 2 big windows. Here you have examples for the artist talk, which we are doing now monthly, of increasing the debate. We talked with Hendrik also about it, that one of the problems we are facing in Palestine also, that we don't have a lot of people who can write about art. And most of the time, artists writing about the other artists, and I'm not such a big fan of it, and we don't have journalists who are writing about art. So that's also a kind of attempt. I don't have the means to build up an academy for writing on art, but at least we are starting with this kind of artist talks to engage people with a topic. That's our meeting area outside. And here you see some possibilities for the exhibitions. That was our last exhibition on Gaza after the Gaza war. And here is an example for the collector's room. You see a bit of the wooden floor. And as I said, also we are engaged also in creative industry, where we try to set up the possibilities for artists to engage with traditional handcraft, because we have a variation of very nice traditional handcrafts, which perhaps you know or have seen already in the markets, but nothing has happened so far, so they are really stuck also in, as you have seen them 50, 60 years ago, so there's no development. So we're trying to bring our artists together with traditional handcraft and find new ways to present them and to recreate it as a product. Yeah. Yes. Actually, the public space art program has very much to do with CQU, because when I started to raise up the idea that I want to go outside of the white cube, I was set up with Charlotte. And it was really, really important for me, because I had an idea about what I want to do with urban intervention and art lab, but I needed contact and I needed to get ready or get started. So I was introduced to Charlotte, who came to Palestine, to Jerusalem, and we started together to brainstorm. So it's already one example of dialogue or of the program Christiana is just was talking about. I don't know where she is now. I don't see. Hey, sorry. So it's already working. It was very important for us to start in that way. So why we're doing it, or what is what are the main aims for me to do it? So the urban intervention and art walks project or public space project is important for me, because we try to activate the public space for Palestinians in Jerusalem through urban intervention. So what is very important for us is that these projects have to be community-driven and participatory. And it has to be also very practical. That was very nice with Charlotte. We became very practical also. When I started to discuss with team members and people from the street and other organizations about urban intervention, I realized that they didn't get what I want, or they didn't get what I try to implement there. So sooner or later, I realized I have just to get started to let them see and to experiment also with everyone together what is possible on the ground. Because normally, urban intervention, you go out, you are in the public space, you do something like this kind of rebel architecture movements do, and you see what happens afterwards, or community members will take over, or artists take over, and so on. But in our place, where it was very, very clear for me that we will not work with the Israeli municipality, the whole idea of public space and activating public space became a different issue. So also, as I said already before, the public space is very much connected to the Israeli domination of the public space. So I had also to overcome the insecurity and the suspicions by the Palestinians. What you want? I mean, is this now a normalization? What you're trying to do, And so I had really to convince people to work with us and to leave their frustration, and also about it, even if we do this now, you just do it once and then everything will continue as it was. I mean, of course, that's a big risk. The whole thing is a big risk, but let's try to see what happens. So, and another challenge, I mean, there are millions of challenges, I have to say, but I would just put this in. Another big challenge in Jerusalem is it's such a religious city. I mean, all of you know. but working and living there makes it more obvious, because you have to deal with all these holidays, all these different. Yeah, it's the Jewish holiday, the Christian holidays, and you have the Orthodox Christian and the Catholic Christian, and then you have the Muslim holidays. So you are just trying to go around all these holidays, not to offend anyone. And then also it restricts your freedom of expression, because you have to be careful. You cannot do everything on the ground there. And so it was very clear for me that when we are getting now back to the ground and we just get started, we have to be open for experiments, but at the same time carefully, trying to find creative solutions for how to deal with public space without being arrested and being closed down, and not putting anyone in danger, and at the same time stretching the boundaries. So getting bigger and to see, also what you can do without being kept in your little prison in your head because you think you can't do it. So just see how much. Oh my God, 10 minutes. Okay. So we get started in a little park. So I started little, and we have a little park around the corner. It's the only public park in East Jerusalem, and it was not used by the public, by the Palestinian public, because it has a bad reputation, and it is used by drug dealers, and so everyone who enters the park gets a bad reputation, even during the day. So we said, okay, this is the first thing we want to try out. So let's go into this park and see what we can do, because people should get back to the park. And it was very clear that we can't get the adults, so we started with kids. And so we just started on a very basic level with kids' activities in the garden, and literally all the adults were standing at the border of the garden watching us, and they didn't enter. They didn't do this one step forward, they didn't enter, but the kids came. And then step by step, after the kids came, the adults came. And so we continued, and we arranged different open-air performances. We brought the circus there, all trying to... we covered ourselves in saying we're making a big birthday party when the municipality came. So it's a private thing, so it's okay. And we had the Palestinian circus coming and doing a performance and doing workshops there. And then we started to do first art workshops. And another important part was opening up garden talks, like a kind of speaker's corner idea, where we invited people to come and to talk about what they want to do in a public space. So it's not very much artistically so far, perhaps. But then after all doing this, we were able to start with our first art intervention in the park. And because we started on a certain ground and let the people grow with us, it was then totally fine to do the art intervention and having the community being part of the art intervention. So, and then the next step was bringing Charlotte again and starting workshops around what it means to do urban intervention, that you don't need an engineer coming doing these things for you, but you could do it by your own hands. Very important to get people back to become active by themselves. And it ended up now in our latest project. So it literally just come after we got started. We had our first 3 tours. It's reviewing Jerusalem. Reviewing Jerusalem, we brought 4 Danish artists to Palestine, 1 Irish artist, and we had 4 Palestinian artists. It was not easy to get Palestinian artists to take part in this project, because currently the Palestinian art scene is very much connected to what also Paul discussed in the first day, getting out, being connected to the international market, and just work on your career. Nobody's really interested to work with a community where you are not that presented in a posh way, perhaps. So it is very difficult to get Palestinian artists taking part in this project. So what we did, we had 1 senior artist, and we took 3 just freshly graduated artists from Jerusalem, Palestinians who worked with us. So the whole setup of the group was something like a partnership between experienced artists and younger artists. So it was within the whole project already a workshop and a training. So we brought them all together, and it was a very collaborative process. Although I was the curator, we wanted to build up together the whole project, and we signed down the way which connected the Zahra Street, where our institution is located, to the old city. I brought some of the maps also with me. I don't know where they are, so perhaps later on you can have a look at them. And we had 8 stations for them to work on. So I give you some examples. Then we came up with an overall theme, and the artists started to get practical and work on their different artworks in a collaborative way. So here you see Connor. So the main framework was connecting the 2 different districts, the old city and our circle, our district, to increase through the artwork the mobility again for the community to go back and forward, and to see both districts and both centers represented in the other endpoint. So we had actually the architecture of the old city presented in the Zahra Street, and the Zahra Street area presented in the old city. So you had also architecturally a dialogue, and in the same time the dialogue and the mobility of the people. So here you see we have here our first intervention. That was the tour. We had over 80 people on the first day. And what made me very happy, it was 70% Palestinians, and that's exactly what I wanted to achieve. So that was for me very nice. So we combined the art stations and the artworks of the artist again with community interactions. So throughout the different stations. Here, for example, there was we visited the Indian hospice in the old city, where we just had a music performance. Here there was it's a youth club where we had an art installation by a young Palestinian artist, but in the same time, we combined it by a community activity where the Palestinian women started to make bread, because they normally did that in the past in this park. So we also connected history with art, with community. The only problem was that people didn't want to leave that place anymore after that. And last but not least, one last comment, which was also a part of that project, which was really important. The roofs in the old city are more and more taken over by Jewish settlers. So the roof, which could be such a great possibility for us to work on public space, urban gardening, etc., is already gone or dominated by, again, the other power. So what we tried to do, we engaged through the tour with a flower shop. And we let everyone take one flower and walk through the old city. And in the last station, which was the rooftop of another place, bring the flower until this rooftop. And on this rooftop, we start to make urban gardening, which was really tricky for me. I had no idea if we would be attacked or not, but it worked out very well. I was also not sure if this has too much symbol inside of the idea, but at the end it became like a procession, and it was very important also to make people feel that there are still things that we can do, and it makes a difference. And so every day we end up there, we put the flowers, and then we put them down again because we don't want them to be destroyed. But the next day we do it again. So it's all about also repeating this tour and doing this kind of activities again and again and again. That is one of the spaces we could use as well. That was an old bazaar which was closed for 40 years, and our Danish artists were able to enter now for the first time, and we used that place as a temple of silence, because silence and calm doesn't exist in our circumstances. So they came up with the idea that what we want to give to the community and to the people as a place to rest, to hold on. So they had their intervention in that space, and we integrated Sufi musicians to that place. Here you see some but you can see more on their blog if you're interested in. And here, this is the work of Conor McGrady, who brought the architecture point of view to that place. And this is the rooftop where we had at the end a happening taking place. Yeah, start where you are, use what you have, do what you can. That's it. Thank you. Looks like you. Could be you. Look.
It's me.
You were there.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, see?
You need, I need some exercise.
Yeah.
That I did know, actually. Thanks a lot. Very, very enlightening. And immediately, when listening to you and seeing the slides, I too can't imagine a more complex place to work in than Jerusalem.
Yes.
And at the very same time, there might not be a place embracing more opportunities, basically, than Jerusalem. It's always that, the challenge, the opportunity, the light, the black, you know. And I'm very interested in how do you bring, for instance, when you're working with Charlotte, how do you bring the conceptualization of art in a kind of westernized tradition? Because that's the whole notion of galleries and museum spaces and basically the very fundament of art history when we are talking about what it says in the transnational documents, the UNESCO Convention and so forth, are based in a westernized tradition. How do you translate that into the meeting with your local community, which has been completely disenfranchised in terms of art and art participation and art as an experience, even just as a passive participatory process? How do you do that?
Well, actually, to make it just easy, and to break it down and to get practical. So it makes no sense to explain things on the longer term, but to let people feel and to experience what it means to go into these art interventions. But on the other hand, what I tried with my engagement now with Hoash is to break also the very traditional concept of art. It's a very funny situation because we don't have any art museum. You have to realize that you don't have this possibility to go through the classical way of seeing a national gallery and you have the setup and then you turn into be contemporary or new art and rebel and etc. So what we have there is actually a situation that people just start to be contemporary. And I think that is actually also problematic because it can be a bit of superficial if you don't go through the whole process, So so in that sense, when I started there, I felt that this white cube is very much trying to imitate something and therefore it has a gap with the community. So it makes no sense to go into this direction and totally transfer the whole concept of art and to make art more visible, like touchable, and through this feeling of art, you can then go into more conceptual work.
So one of the notes that I wrote to myself was, is she really trying to kind of reconstruct the DNA of programming here? Is that what's on the stage? Is that it?
Well, yes, no.
Yeah.
Now, I mean, I'm very much interested in experimenting, and I like the word rethinking, and I think, as you said, instead of seeing your restrictions in the place, because you are very restricted, and there are so many challenges, you have to converse it into possibilities and to see the creativity inside of this chaos. And that was actually, perhaps that's interesting for you here as well. I think the main point for the result for the Danish artists, it was very funny for me because Bureau de Tours has this rebel character and being alternative and calm and being wild, but they were confronted with a total chaos. A total chaos which they couldn't deal with. So suddenly they reduce themselves, you know, and they become more traditional in a way. It was very interesting for me to see. So, and I think it was for them a big challenge and a good learning process also to reflect about their own position, where, you know, when you are calling yourself being rebel, being alternative, la 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 la, and then you realize, oh, perhaps not that, and you know, there are certain concepts I need for my work. I think that would be, well, that was very interesting for them, for themselves to reflect about their own position.
And that chaotic setting is,
Yeah.
I mean, you kind of described it. I just tried to follow you, and it ended up looking like a disenfranchised mind map of some kind, with lots of arrows going everywhere. But I think it's interesting that you have a space where people are connected in a constant disconnected way.
Yeah.
But is it perceived as such? Does people who live there, do they see themselves as disconnected?
Yes.
Definitely.
Yes, but the being disconnected is already part of your nature, and that's even more dangerous because it's normal, you know. So you start to feel I wouldn't say comfortable. This is perhaps wrong to say, but it's a habitat. So you're kind of, you know, that's how you work and that's how you live. So you're also not questioning it anymore, and that's the whole purpose for me also, to re-question everything there, because otherwise people cannot be political, and in a sense how I understand being political, but follow only easy solutions because you don't question anything anymore.
We touched a bit on that while you were in Aarhus having meetings in Jutland yesterday. The rest of us were talking a bit about how perception and genius loci, you know, the kind of spirit of the place. Sylvia was presenting her space metropolis outside Rome. We had Kenneth Balford from Denmark was talking about how he worked with the beer drinkers in a local park, and how the place itself and the logic of the place and the place identity, the space identity, somehow was quite reluctant to change, but at the very same time was very open for change. But it was a very processual kind of road. When you look at the people that you engage, because there seems to be a narrative that you start with the young ones, then you get the families, then you get the community, then you get the artist, the newly educated artist, and in the very end you get the artist out there realizing themselves, hopefully.
Perhaps come back.
So is that the way it works, or could you even reverse that? Could you kind of kick it the other way around, bring in people who could kind of become game changers through the way they work with their art?
We will see. I mean, I started, and I felt that, or I feel that the way I'm going to this narration now is the right way. But it is more about how people and artists think. So if I see an artist understands our way of process, I would invite him to be part of it. So I mean, like Bureau de Tous or Charlotte, there are established artists and curators. So I can bring them in because they understood what I need and what I want and what the situation is. So it is perhaps not always a clear cut, you know. You have to see throughout the whole development how to integrate people from outside. But I have to tell you, like, exactly that's what I hope. I hope that some of our Palestinian international hot shooters coming back and be engaged on this process, because they are not anymore.
Okay. I think I will allow, we have some questions from the hall. There's one question down here, and you just wait for the microphone.
Hi, my name is Anna Bokris. First of all, I want to thank you for a very interesting presentation. I also want to feedback on the aesthetics of your museum, as I also lived in Jerusalem for quite many years, and I'm half Israeli, not half Palestinian. And what I found really interesting was to discover how Jerusalem look-alike the gallery actually is. While your presentation is focusing mostly on the sort of the challenge to create a identity-specific, sort of site-specific museum gallery. which I want to congratulate you, because from the outside it looks like a real museum gallery in Jerusalem, which I feel very happy about. I have two questions. They might be to be further elaborated on. They might be a bit complex. But my first question would be, is this identity space-specific challenge the core, sort of the core work of the gallery? Is this the most important travel you're on? My second question would be, you mentioned we cannot include the Israeli municipality for obvious reasons. I don't know if these are for obvious reasons, but I understand what you're heading at. You cannot include the Palestinian authorities for obvious reasons. I don't know if those reasons are obvious. So what would happen in the future if otherness was included somehow? That's my second question. May you allow me?
Otherness
In the sense of Jews and Israelis,
Okay.
Jerusalemites, it might even be local citizens, you decide. It might be that, local citizens. And then my third, I said two, my third question, I'm just thinking, this whole idea about community, in gathering the community, I really like that. And I would like you to elaborate a bit more on your future tasks around this specific development or challenge you have.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. First question, yes. It is one of the main tasks for me, because very simply, if you don't have a space and you're not sure about your position and in the space you're living in, you can't live. You can't be creative. You can't go beyond. So that's what I tried to explain when I give a bit the circumstances of our situation, that because I grew up in Germany also, so I have a very clear connection to what it means to be a citizen and having a passport and be presented, and you are secure, you can reach out to a state if you have a problem, etc. But if you don't have this, and I mean a lot of other countries know also about what I'm talking about in the South, then the whole setup of your personality and your life is very unstable. You're not protected. So you feel very insecure, and you can't get out of the concept of trying to follow traditional rules or ways of living if you are not secure. You need this kind of security and the reconnection of yourself. So it's very, very important, and it's not easy for all those who have the ability to be connected to a state and have a strong representation, which is Israel citizens have, to understand what it means if you don't have it. That's the first answer. So yes, and the second one was about, what was the second one? The authority thing? The authority thing? Yeah, very simple also. I don't want to work with the Israeli municipality as long as we have the situation we are in, because it's also very clear for me, like as long as we have this Israeli government, especially that one right now, there's no way of talking and discussion and dialogue. So I'm always saying to those Israelis who come to visit our gallery, you have now a problem with your own government, so solve it and liberate yourself, and then we can talk again. You have your own problem, solve it, come back, and then we talk. The problem why I can't work with the Palestinian Authority, because it's allowed. I'm not allowed to work with the Palestinian Authority because I'm situated in Jerusalem and the Israeli under the Israeli Authority. So if I would work with the Palestinian Authority, the Israeli municipality comes and closes the space. It's very easy. I'm not allowed. I cannot take funds or any support, because if I put the logo or if they find out, that's it. Closed. So it's not allowed. So it's very easy also to answer that one. If the last one was about what?
Jerusalemites.
Jerusalemites. Yeah, nice vision. Would be nice at the end of the day. I mean, like, I think at the end of the day, if there would be one time a possibility to be really equal with each other, then we don't have to talk about this anymore. But as long as we don't have the situation, and it's connected to my first answer, it is very difficult to be in this concept. So I follow up very much the point that we have to concentrate on our own societies because there are problems, and then after that we can again connect to each other. And the atmosphere, I don't know when was the last time you were in Jerusalem, but the atmosphere in Jerusalem is so harsh. It is so tense and it's so full of hate that you don't have also from the other side, from the other Israeli side, the feeling that it's an us, that it's a Jerusalemite issue, and it includes the Palestinian identity in as such that it is autark and independent, and not just a touristic attraction, which is the attempt of the Israeli municipality right now to include the Palestinian part and the old city as an attraction point. And that's really not, we don't want to end up being exotic part in a touristic journey. Yeah.
You don't want to be an exotic part in a touristic journey. That could be the final sentence because we have to stop this session here. So, Alia, thank you very, very much.
Thank you.
Give her a warm hand of applause.
Thank you.